Hey everybody, welcome to my home studio. I thought today that I would just share with all of you a little bit of what I call memory lane. So I was just going through my earnings on Adobe Stock, and one of the really cool things about all this photography I do and the videography I do here on Facebook is that it's kind of documenting my life as I go along here. Now, a, a, a friend of mine, a coworker, at one point put it to me this way. He said, Jason, there's going to be three stages of life, particularly when you hit retirement: the go everywhere years, the go slowly years, and the go nowhere years. Now, I'm doing everything I can to stay healthy, to keep the go everywhere years going as long as possible. But I watched my grandparents go everywhere when they retired and then still able to go places, but much more slowly. And then they hit those go nowhere years. And when I hit my go nowhere years, I want to be able to look back at all the photography I've done and all these YouTube episodes and just kind of remember how great of a time I've had in these go everywhere years. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to share with you some of the desktops that my subscribers at patreon.com/EWJ they get every week, and just kind of run through memory lane with you guys just a little bit. So let me go here, bring this up. All right, so this particular image of just this, it's actually a cool find. This is in Winslow, Arizona, and it's essentially a truck, an old truck stripped of all of its paint. It's nice and shiny. I actually took this on the trip with my dad, so I don't really, remember much about the photo shoot, except that this is one of those father-son trips that I got to go on with Dad. This next one is a little bit of a sentimental piece here. This is actually the Bible that my grandmother got when she was 5 years old before they immigrated from Scotland to America. This was given to her by her Sunday school class, and that dried rose on top was actually one of the roses at her funeral. So it's just a neat little reminder I have of her. Now this one is Singapore. I miss Singapore. Singapore is so much fun. It's ridiculous, especially the food. Oh my gosh, the food is amazing. I'm really hoping that the reason why I would normally go to Singapore PowerShell Conference Asia, really hope they move it back over to Singapore because I miss that place. Now, this is one taken on my last trip to Japan, and you can see by some of the colors there, it was done in fall. I was really hoping that I'd be able to make my way back to Japan, and this time strictly as a travel photographer, but unfortunately this year it doesn't look like it's going to happen, so I'm hoping that next year we are going to make it happen. Instead, I may be heading over to Italy or Greece during that time frame, so not much of a loss. We'll take it. Now, here, it's kind of hard to tell what this is. This is from Paris. This is inside the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Now, this is before the fires, obviously. Now, I studied this cathedral in art class in high school, and just the fact you got to be inside of this medieval Gothic masterpiece was just an amazing experience and really was the highlight of that trip to Paris. And here is Christmas in Naples, Italy. Where is this one at? This is the Galleria Umberto II, which is close to the castle in the center, or right across the street actually from the palace. And they had Christmas decorations up. So this is really kind of a cool opportunity to experience this area during the holiday season. Monument Valley. Now this is a trip, I can't remember, was it mom or dad? I think it was with my mom on this one. This is the Three Sisters, as they're called. And if you guys ever have a chance to go to Monument Valley, I recommend it. It is absolutely an amazing place, especially for a photographer. Even better if you can get there after a snowfall. It is amazing. And of course, one of my favorite places on earth to go to. This is probably not one of my favorite photographs, but this is in Venice, Italy. And that is where if we go to Italy, this is where I'm going to be going. So yes, you guys heard it here. I'm going back to Italy for a couple of days this time, or go to Venice for a couple of days this time. So hopefully we're going to be able to get some incredible photography for you there. Now, this is an image from several years ago. This is my campsite in Nevada. So during the start of COVID, or in the middle of COVID, I took an assignment up in Whidbey Island, but I had to drive up there because I couldn't fly because of the COVID restrictions in the military. So to kind of maintain the bubble, as we call it, I actually camped out. And this is in December, mind you. It got cold, but as you can see, I got some incredible sunlight that morning. Now, this is one of our famous Arizona monsoons. I took this not too far from my house. The monsoon season here is absolutely wild. And unfortunately, whenever the monsoon seems to be really firing up, I am exceptionally busy or out of the country. So we'll see this year. It's really hard to photograph the monsoons because it is hot and your camera equipment really overheats. But if you're careful with it, you can capture the monsoons in all their glory, and it's an amazing sight, I'll be honest with you. Now, here is another one from Venice. I took this, I believe this was my second trip out there. I actually had a couple days in Venice. And really, it's really hard to describe the feeling you have as a photographer when you're in Venice. All the rules of photography are out the window because that's a chaotic masterpiece of Venetian Gothic architecture. Now I managed to get to a point, obviously across the Grand Canal, I was able to shoot back towards Piazza San Marco and be able to capture the evening light. I mean, seriously, you guys have got to go to Venice. Now, this is from the trip where I fell in love with the American West. This is over 20 years ago. I was deployed after 9/11 to Chicago, and I took about 2 weeks off in the springtime and made my first driving trip across the United States to Yellowstone. I tell you what, to this day, I can't even begin to tell you the feeling it puts inside of me looking at this image and just remembering the sense of adventure that I had while I was on this trip. This is the lower falls of the Yellowstone River. This is actually a really hard one to get because I'm looking straight up. I'm inside the Vatican at Vatican City. It is, I mean, I can keep going back into St. Peter's Cathedral and I will find something different every time. It's immense. It is peaceful, and it is a artistic and photographic masterpiece. Now, this is looking straight up at one of the domes, which allowed me to get this symmetry in all directions from this image. And oh, by the way, that one was taken with my wife, was there, even better. All right, as you guys can see, a few more images here from Venice, Italy. Of course, the symbol we all recognize Venice from, which is going to be the gondolas. All right, cover your eyes here, avert your eyes. This is obviously from Florence, Italy, and I had been to Florence before, but never got to see the real David. So this, I was out there last year with my wife and some friends. This is one of the things we wanted to make sure we got in to see. Highly recommend you get reservations and do it as early as possible in the morning because there's a lot of people around me, and we got in early. Luckily, I was able to get a few shots off before it really got crowded in there. So Tuscany was another area that we really wanted to see. So on this last trip, it was a tough one. Rented a car. Yeah, always get the full walk-away insurance if anything happens, because in Italy, the driving conditions can be a little iffy at times. It wasn't too terribly bad, but just the fact that if you got into an accident, you have to deal with the police, and you have to deal with the foreign languages, all the insurance stuff. But when I wasn't driving, it was a great time. So one of the things I wanted to do was visit some of the hilltop towns. I can't remember which one this was. But anyhow, it was really awesome. On the train heading up to Rome, I'd see all the hilltop towns. All these years, never got to visit them. But we went to, I think it was San Gimignano and one other one, and it was really cool. Positano along Italy's famed Amalfi coast. Now, I will admit here, if you're not going to be really spending time on the beach, I wouldn't spend an entire day here, to be honest with you. I mean, it is beautiful, but it's really there for beachgoers. But photographically, you could see it's a very unique location. Now, this is actually from my first trip ever to Hawaii. And you can see just got a glorious sunset. This is taken from Waikiki Beach. I was there for the military. It's kind of my revenge for mobilizing me to Naval Station Great Lakes the previous year. I took a 3-week trip to the islands. And yes, I did work every day, but in the evenings, it was all mine. This is taken from the island of Capri on top of Monte Soriano. This is the highest point on the island. Now, this island has been home to Roman emperors, and let's just say the rich and famous generally park their yacht around the island. I mean, look at that epic blue of the Mediterranean Sea. We're actually, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking south towards Africa right now. That's kind of weird I could say that. All right, so this is a camping trip I had at the end of monsoon season. We're expecting to do astrophotography. We got this. Now, this is obviously taken at night. It's a long exposure, but we actually started packing up our gear because that storm cell was getting very close to us, and we are on the highest point around. Luckily, it steered off to the north, and we were able to stay out there, but did get any astrophotography. Got a good meal out of it, though. All right, now this is to date the best image of the galaxy I've taken. Now, I did take some liberty with the colors. I was out above Sedona, Arizona on this particular camping trip, but got some incredibly dark skies. Stood out there. This is actually a panoramic image I took of the galactic cloud. And I tell you what, that was a really awesome night. And the temperatures, perfect for camping in Arizona. Now, this is a fairly recent image here. When I saw this in Arches National Park, I knew this was the image I wanted to capture in the evening. Now, you notice there's no arches there. I saw these rock pillars and petrified sand dunes, and I saw the snow-covered La Salle Mountains far off in the distance. So what I did is, when evening came, I used a long lens to bring those cool colors of the mountain forward to the warmer colors of the rock formation, the warm colors that they were getting from the setting sun. I'll be honest with you, I really like this photo. And it's also cool because this is, of course, another one of those father-son trips that I do with my dad at least once a year. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me on this little trip down memory lane. Now, remember, these are the 4K downloads that my subscribers at patreon.com/EWJ get to enjoy. As a matter of fact, my lowest tier of support gets these downloads. So please consider going out there and supporting me. My equipment goes through a lot of strenuous conditions. We're talking about freezing cold temperatures to the peak heat of a Phoenix summer. So I do have to keep replacing my equipment, and your support here on Patreon is what allows me to do that. For those of you who have been supporting me all this time, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are going to be new subscribers on Patreon, thank you so much for allowing me to continue doing this. Well, that's all I've got for you guys this week. Thank you for joining me. Take care, and I'll see all of you next week.